Welcome to On the Line, Products Finishing's podcast for coders and finishers. I'm your host, Scott Francis, editor of Products Finishing. Today we're talking about the supply chain, and I don't mean supply chain for finishers, but the role of finishing within the e-commerce supply chain at large. Amazon Prime Day is coming up July 12th and 13th, and the phenomenon has become one of those heavily shopped deal days, rivaling such events as Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But the COVID pandemic has changed the game quite a bit. We became so accustomed to quick turn online orders, and supply chain challenges have changed what we might expect when we're ordering online. While the subject of supply chain gets dissected quite a bit these days, one aspect of it that may not be getting enough consideration is the role that industrial coatings play in the supply chain for all products. Today we're speaking with Maria Lamore, Commercial Strategy Manager for PPG's Industrial Coatings Division, to hear more about the role of coatings in today's supply chain. Maria, welcome to On the Line.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Amazon Prime Day is coming up. I'm sure a lot of people are getting ready to take advantage of some of the deals out there, but the e-commerce landscape isn't quite the same given continuing challenges with the ongoing COVID pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about the state of the supply chain right now, particularly when it comes to e-commerce?
Yes, absolutely. I'm finding the state of the supply chain still seems to be a the challenges are, of course, there with labor shortages and raw materials and things like that. But the other piece of that is just how much things are in flux and companies still reacting in a very reactionary mode. But then the game keeps changing and they keep trying to react to a moving target. So we saw a big expansion during the COVID pandemic and then a big contraction with companies reducing their warehouse footprints, before they were increasing them at a rapid pace. And then the change in consumer buying behavior, right? They're moving away from products and more to services, traveling more, eating out more, and things they couldn't do in COVID. But I believe these spikes are still going to level out, and it's important to maybe not be so reactionary in this time right now. E-commerce has changed the way we buy, and the COVID pandemic only accelerated that. More people started buying online than they never had tried it even before, and they continue to do it to this day. I know my buying behavior changed, that of my families and my friends. That I do things more online. I pick up my groceries versus going into the stores still many times, and it's just so convenient.
So the role that industrial coatings play in the general supply chain is something that many people take for granted. Can you talk about some of the ways that coatings help keep everything running?
Absolutely. Well, coatings are a lot of times people look at a paint and they think about the color or how it looks or the texture of it. But really, when it comes to industrial coatings, it's the first line of defense for a particular asset. It protects that whole piece of equipment or racking system from corrosion, weathering, all that kind of thing. Sure, they are colored, absolutely, but they are the first line of defense for protection. Then they add properties to that. So whether it's scratch resistance or anti-skid resistance, those are other factors that we don't even think about that the coating provides protection against. When it comes to e-commerce and coating's role in that, we coat lots of shelving and racking systems to protect against corrosion. But in addition to that, we find that there's also the element of the power system. Where does the lighting come from? The transformers, the lighting inside the building, the generators, the HVAC equipment. All of that plays an integral part. And then you think about the last mile delivery trucks. I mean, not even the trains and airplanes and things like that bring in the supplies, but the things that are going right out to the consumer, and how important those vehicles and things like that are coated. We're seeing more of electrification and how the coating can act as the thermal management system, whether it's keeping goods cooler or keeping goods warmer, things like that.
I think those are really good points. I think that people who aren't directly in the industry just don't realize how many things need some sort of coating, and it's not just a paint job. So, like every area of business, the finishing industries are facing their own supply chain challenges. For example, raw materials are becoming more expensive or in lower supply. You kind of talked a little bit about this. What does all of this mean for the supply chain for getting products into the hands of consumers?
I'm finding not only with our company, but working closely with our customer base in a wide variety of applications, there's more scrutiny in the types of raw materials that are being used in products. And when it comes to product design, ensuring that flexibility is built in to easily change out one product for another. When we look at supplier agreements, our customers look at supplier agreements, being careful not to be single sourced in any type of product, and understanding that you have a good second and third backup as necessary. And paying close attention to what's happening in the world. I mean, China's had that shutdown again, and the many companies that are on starting to onshore their products, and just further, in addition to that, the raw materials that companies are competing for that are going into other types of electrification, energy resources, things like that.
We're preaching to the choir a little bit when it comes to PF's audience who do understand the importance of coatings. But when you think about the coatings industries, what would you most like to let the layperson know?
That that they really are that first line of defense. And in addition to that, they can provide many other properties, whether it's to protect against the UV and what it does to break down the coating, and then it compromises the structure of, say, a shelving or racking system in an e-commerce, or a transformer that's regulating power. Being very aware of all of those things that they can provide, even to the point of antimicrobial properties, or protecting workers. For example, PPG makes powders that coat and cover intricate shapes and parts so that they're not so sharp and can cut somebody if they're pulling a box on and off the shelf and things like that. So they're workhorses, and they do a lot to protect assets, and they can really affect the total cost of ownership of those assets and their longevity.
Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us today. It's been great, and happy Amazon Prime Day.
Thank you. You too.
You've been listening to Online, the official podcast of Products Finishing. Many thanks to our guest, Maria Lamore of PPG. For more episodes of Online, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or listen at pfonline.com/podcast. Thanks, and we'll catch you next time.